Would you get married again?
Yeah, I would. I think it would just be different. I think, to be honest, like I think it was much more about what it represented, like not internally or holistically. I think it was much more about, checking off the box in mid-20s, and then it's on the roadmap to get in the house with the kids and yada, yada, yada. And I just think the intention, like I would never throw somebody under the bus or like what we had and say like there was nothing there. But I feel like a lot of it was like what people were saying in our ears. So it was kind of like, oh, we got to put on a big wedding and then we got to like do this and do that. And I believe in it, but I wouldn't be in a rush to do it.
Hello. Happy Sunday, everyone. I go by the name of Alonzo Williams, and you are now tuned into the Everyday Stranger podcast. Let's get it. So today's episode is going to be a pretty good one. Today's topic is divorce really a bad thing? Now, we know in America, the famous statistic that 40 to 50% of marriages will eventually end in divorce. So I decided to bring a guest on the show to talk about this. Today's guest goes by the name of Sam. He also goes by a poet and a gentleman. As you can see, he's a poet and also an author, and also a really good friend of mine. We grew up together in Virginia, and this is our first time speaking since the high school days, so I think this is going to be a pretty interesting episode, y'all. We're going to go ahead. We're going to talk about this. Today's topic is divorce really a bad thing? This is the Everyday Stranger podcast with today's guest, Sam, a.k.a. a poet and a gentleman. All right, y'all. Enjoy. Peace.
Hey, man, it's been a minute.
Yeah, long time, bro.
Long time. Back in VA, man.
VA days, yeah. We ain't hit 20 years yet, right?
Oh, man. That would have been 2003, right? So.
Yeah.
No, we're good.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. I was a little worried at first, man.
Yeah, we don't need to. We don't need to go that old yet.
Right. What's the deal, bro? What's the deal, man?
Hey, man, living life, man. I'm back on the. We talked about it a while back, but I'm back on the East Coast. I was in LA for a while. Almost 6.5 years, and before that in Miami, and just like been traveling a lot, man. I went over to Asia, Europe, Caribbean, it's kind of like that game. You remember the Carmen San Diego game back in the day?
Yeah, where in the world is
Yeah, man, I got people all the time. They know me in different chapters of my life, and trying to keep tabs, and you move in and out of life and chapter, and yeah, I've been all over the place, man. But I'm back on the East Coast.
For sure, man. Hey, well, we're about to talk about a lot of that, man.
Yeah, man.
but as usual, as I ask all my guests first, is what's been life's greatest lesson for you?
Oof. Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that. Oh, man. Not to sound too simplistic with it, but like the concept of time and everything that embodies, what you spent your time doing when you were younger, and like it when you get older, it's like it's not what you expected, and like so I say time in the sense that like mortality is real, the concept of time, how important it is, and how you use your time, and I just think it's the most valuable thing in the world, more than money, more than title, more than status. Yeah. And I kind of learned that with age and ups and downs and just life, and so I think the greatest lesson is just seeing time in a whole different light and redefining it in many different ways.
Definitely. I was going to ask you, like in comparison to yourself when you were younger, like how did you view time then versus now?
Yeah, man, it's it's changed, man. Like I'm 34 now, and back then it was kind of the household I was raised in. We got a lot in common. My father was career military.
Yeah.
My mother's French Canadian, creative at heart, opera singer, like super creative, and I was a firstborn son. I'm the oldest, so it was just like time to me was like a checklist back then. It was like making the parents proud, making the family friends proud, and like living up to this, I don't know, like kind of like like expectation and like facade. And so time to me was just like checking it off the box, get involved with this, run to here, play sports. And it was more of like, TikTok, checking the lists, and it really just felt rushed, and then just time flew by. And then as I'm getting older, I become much more selective on like how I use my time and like who I give my energy to. And, I'm sure we'll get into that, but like, with that comes learning and education. And I think a part of that is, you end up losing friends, you end up like cutting people out, and you just become much more intentional with time.
Right.
Everything that comes with that,
Definitely. Well, that's a good point too, man. Because I can totally relate with that. I feel like I spent like the majority of my 20s, like, trying to check things off the list, but at the same time trying to meet a lot of expectations as well of others. Yeah. And we're in the same. We have identical lives in a sense. The way we came up and our age and everything. Bro, I had a talk with this young guy, man. He had just recently got a divorce, and like the dude was like really, like the way how he was speaking, he was talking to me as if life was over, right? And it kind of led me to this thought, because I think me and you, we hit each other up on the DM a few times about like marriage and divorce and everything. Yeah. But as you know, like the topic of discussion is like, is divorce like really a bad thing? And I wanted to get your thoughts on that first before we like really dig deep and everything. Like how do you feel about divorce, and have you been married before? First off.
Yeah, no, and I think that's it's crazy, man, because I think this needs to be talked about. And I mean, part of my healing process and part of reflection, it's kind of aligns with this topic. And I think to answer your question, I was previously married, and and just like full disclosure, her and I are on good terms.
Right. Good stuff.
Like, yeah, man, it's all good energy. And, obviously there was like healing involved, and, I'm about putting as much positivity in the world, and
yeah, all day.
Like, wishing the best, man. But yeah, I got married young, I got married, maybe in our parents' generation, maybe it wasn't considered young, but I think today, I got married at 25, and, and then I went through my divorce in that would have been late 2012. So I was married for a little under 3 years, okay. Total time with that person about 6.
Right.
But in the way I look at it is, I feel like a lot of what I did and like the decisions I made was, obviously you got to take personal accountability. So obviously you feel a certain way and you take certain steps. But I also feel at that time in my life, I think I like some of the decisions, the real life decisions and consequences were also because I was trying to like do stuff for other people. So like what people see on the outside is not necessarily what they see behind closed doors. So in my situation, it was, they look a certain way, and this power couple and accomplished, and they're doing this, and, he's in real estate and yada, 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 and they're going to make big moves. And what people see on the outside doesn't necessarily match what's going behind closed doors. And, and it was just one of those things where like, we grew apart. It didn't work out. And, and I think at the time when you go through it, it's not an ideal thing to go through. It's like, I'm not trying to make this seem like, it like belittle what it means and what it represents. But at the same time, we got to remove the stigma about that. And that's something that I've been working on like through the years, where I'm just like, I want to talk about it. There's no reason why it should be a scarlet letter. Yeah. You re-enter the dating world. If you want to start something else, like, don't hide that. You got to like dance around it. You got to bring it up. But I feel like honesty and communication is number one. Like you put that up on the forefront. If someone can handle, they handle it. If they don't, then, move on.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. I think it's part of the texture, someone's fabric.
Yeah. I like the fact that you said that like you and your ex-partner, like you two are on good terms now. Because one thing that I've been learning, like, in my life and at the age I'm at now, is that I think one of the things, I think that sometimes we put a little bit too much pressure on ourselves by actually breaking up with people, meaning like totally like thinking that you have to completely discontinue yourself from a particular person, meaning like friendship and everything, right? But what I'm learning is that like, and I mean like discontinue in a way where you have to feel like you're winning over this particular person, or like there's like a competition in who's going to heal faster type thing. What I'm learning honestly is that I feel like we put a lot of mental stress on our brain by actually trying to, again, like totally cut somebody out of our life, quote unquote, versus like just accepting the fact that, hey, things haven't really changed. It's just that we're not together in that romantic sense anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And with your situation, I don't know the particulars of mine. Like, it went through like different chapters. It's kind of like that. The bell curve, kind of like a roller coaster. So like when it first happened, we didn't. I mean, full disclosure. I mean, she would match the story. Everyone that knows, like, we didn't talk for a very long time. Like, I'm talking multiple years. Like, when I left Miami, I went to LA.
Yeah.
Right after that, and like there was no communication. So at the time, you're caught up in the whole thing, and like you want to respect the space and you want to respect the decision and kind of like let people heal on their own terms. But at the same time, it was kind of weird because there was like I'm saying no emails, no phone calls. It was almost like zero communication.
Yeah.
And then I think in me, I moved out to LA for many reasons, but and we can get into that later too. But that was just like the best thing I could have ever done in my life, and just on many different levels. But then time, and I'm gonna share a story with you, man. This is probably the craziest thing that's probably ever happened to me in my life. So, mind you, I haven't spoken to her in 2 years. I'm saying zero communication. I don't even know what she's doing. I don't know where she's at.
Yeah.
I'm following her. I'm going for a jog on Ocean Avenue in Santa Monica. That's where I stayed at. And I turn, there's like the promenade, the Santa Monica promenade. So I turn north towards, there was an old Barnes and Noble. So it's a big tourist area. I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of people every day, just like walking around. And I turn the corner. I never take this corner when I'm on a jog because I always keep going towards the like Malibu and Pacific Palisades for my route.
Right.
I'm like, man, I got to take a breath. So I turn, I get to a crosswalk on the promenade, and I'm waiting to cross. And the white emblem guy like tells you to go across. And for some reason, I'm like, man, I got to turn around. I turn around, and I'm not joking you, no shit. I'm looking her and our mutual friend, who is her bridesmaid at the wedding, face to face. We're 5 feet away.
Oh, snap.
5 feet away, mind you, 2,500 miles away from each other. Haven't spoken in 2 years. I'm saying
what was that?
Communication.
What was that? But initially, though, not to cut you off, but like what was the feeling? Like, if you can count it, like the first 5 seconds of like, oh snap.
It kind of goes to what you were saying about people heal on different timelines, and you never know what to expect. Because I moved to LA, I had done some personal like healing and introspection, and like grew as a man and matured, I think, very rapidly, and kind of like learn more about myself. So from my end, it was weird because I kind of I was happy to see her, but I was like in this state where I was super calm. Like I was zenned out. I mean, it might've been the stuff, coming over from Venice in the air, but it's a different world over there. But no, I mean, I was really calm, man. Like I'm not gonna lie. I smiled, and like, I was like super diplomatic, super nice. I thought I was just in a different headspace, man. Like I was genuinely like happy just to like see her and say a word, like hear her voice and say a word. But it was different though, because it wasn't like a rekindling of the feelings. It was more like, as a human being, I recognize you and I see you, and it's good to see you. Now from her standpoint, I've never seen somebody like more pale in my life. Like she was in total shock. This is probably the furthest thing she ever wanted to like probably encounter and like have to deal with, because I think we dealt with it in two different ways.
Right.
So she was in shock, man. Like she didn't even really know what to verbalize. And, I was trying to make it less awkward and just be super diplomatic and just positive, man. I was like on a positive, ever since then, I've been on a positive kind of wave, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I've been checking out like because you do poetry as well.
yeah, man. Back then, man, I was like songwriting. I did some ghost writing. Woodside, and you'd
Yeah,
have this section where freestyling, and and what people don't realize is, it was like one life in school, and then like living another life outside. I was actually working in a lot of like music studios in like the seven cities, like even as a
nice.
16, 17-year-old before I went off to West Point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been writing my whole life, and I published my first book in 2016. Even though I had like crazy, I don't know, like 15 plus years worth of material.
Yeah, cause I mean I've been
Yeah,
peeping it, and I could tell like yo my man Sam is definitely on like on a higher like spiritual journey, like positively
yeah,
speaking and everything. Like I could see you like growing, just as a man yourself, just kind of I don't know, expanding. I
yeah.
think it's the right
Yeah,
word.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
I think some people. I'm at a point in my life where I'm just putting everything out there, man. Like shedding the ego and kind of like breaking down the facades and just being more vulnerable and honest, man. Because I feel like the type of environment I grew up in and the type of area we grew up in, there's a certain level of expectation and drive and discipline, and like you fall into one category in this, and you're kind of defined by your work and where you lived in, Newport News or wherever, and I'm just at a point in my life, man, where I don't, I'm trying to be blunt, man. I just don't give a shit,
yeah, hey,
like you can hear, and you probably hear that a lot in my stuff too, man. Like
yeah,
I don't put on anymore, man. I've been through too much in my life in many different ways that life's too short to play the part, man. Like you just got to show people who you are, and like I always say this, like I tell people I love and care for. Like I'm done walking on eggshells around people,
right,
and like I am who I am, and I always let the chips fall where they may. I don't care if it's family, friends, complete strangers. Like you're gonna know who I am, like what I stand for, like what I'm about. And like I'm at a point in my life where like I can't play politician anymore. I did
right.
that for 30 years, and like I'll be, I'm half Canadian, so I'm always gonna be nice, But
That's where it come from. Yeah, bro. I
yeah,
got a
yeah,
Canadian homeboy, and I was like, yo,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
look, me and him was talking about the oh, bro, the Pusha T and Drake battle, right? And
Yeah,
we're
yep.
debating about two different things. Like he's debating about like how like not kind Pusha T was for not for mentioning the whole baby situation.
Right, right.
And I'm talking about like the bars and he just going at him. I'm like, so
Yeah.
we're
Hey,
debating
is the
about
person you arguing with, is he from 757?
no. Well, he's married to well, you know Martine.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's married
Okay.
Martine's husband. Yeah, he's
Okay.
from
All right.
Toronto. Yeah, so we're debating and
Okay.
we're both
Yeah, because I
right.
was gonna say, because if you're from where we're from, like, and I don't know how you feel, the way I feel about it, I mean, I definitely took push in that, like, that's just like,
I
because it's a
took
hometown thing, and
yeah, I had to.
I'm more of a lyricist, and so Drake makes good records, but anybody that says that Push didn't body him is on something.
Yeah, I had to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had to
all's
ride with
fair.
Push.
All's fair. If you want to jump into a battle, I mean, like, the way it's on record, and that,
Yeah, man. No
it's no
holds
debate,
barred.
man.
But yeah,
No debate.
yeah. For sure. But I lost much. Oh yeah. So what the question I had for you was like how does one get to that point of not really like shedding the ego and not really worrying about what other people think about them, because I'm
Yeah.
assuming prior to that you said you were very political or you're like politically correct most of the time, and
Yeah.
first why do you feel that you were that way in the past, and then like how did you get to this point? How does one get to the point of shedding the ego?
Wow. Yeah, man, it's a lot bottled up in there, man. I think you got to kind of know where you come from, and I think, I think for me, it all stems back to like how I was raised, and I'm the firstborn. Excuse me, firstborn. The older brother. I got a younger sister in the household I was in, and for me, I was always driven by like expectation and like looking up to my father, and he was an officer in the army, and so I think for me it was like living up to this ideal, and like the worst thing in the world for me at the time was like I don't want to disappoint my parents. Like, so the family name, like success, I mean, there was no, you couldn't be subpar in the household.
Right.
Like, you got to be involved with everything. You got to be respectful to your elders. You got to be super polite. You're going to volunteer. Like, you're going to make straight A's. And then, and then on top of that, then I put the pressure on myself of like, okay, so I got to get straight A's. I got to do all this. And so I always felt like I was caught between many worlds, man. Like, there's one thing I was doing like in school in a certain type of community where I was like putting on, where I was like trying to be the best of the best because I wanted to be driven, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I see why it happened, but but then there's also the other worlds, like where we grew up, like I remember going to like downtown Newport News, like 32nd Ave in Roanoke. I'd go to like Buckrow Beach. I used to like, I used to play hoops at different parts of the, the city. I mean, I was never one to be in like a certain like clique or group. I was trying to be friends with everybody, and then again, I think it goes back to like the diplomatic, half Canadian, I could just, you know what I mean? Like I listen to everything, we talk about it, man. I grew up on like, 80s, 90s hip hop. And like, I was kind of like a chameleon, I could get along with everybody and I just love everybody and like culture and diversity. And so I just always felt like I was being pulled in like 2, 3, 5 different directions growing up because it's like, there's a certain group over here, certain expectations, but like the true self wanted to do this. And then I fell in like, okay, now I want to follow my father's footsteps. So I'm like, okay, I got to do everything I can do to make sure I get a nomination to West Point. So my dad was an 80 grad of West Point, and that process is long, man. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but like the academy, man, you got to start like building for that when you're like in 7th grade, 8th grade, man. Like it's crazy. Like you can't get suspended, you can't get expelled, you can't have any like blemishes on your record. You got to have like higher than a 3.8 GPA. Like it was nuts, man. I put so much pressure on myself.
Yeah,
and it paid off. I mean, I remember the night I opened up my early nomination, man. I got a nomination from the vice president, from a senator, like.
Wow.
I got hurt. Yeah, man, it was crazy. And hey, you're going to West Point. And so at the time I was like seeing my father cry because he was proud of me. And I had no clue what I was getting into, man. Like, which is crazy because like if people that really, really know me, the thought of me being clean cut and like wearing a uniform for the rest of my life and listening to orders, like that's the antithesis of who I am. Like I've been accused of being a nomad, a rebel. I say some outrageous stuff sometimes. I'm just like super in tune with like the arts and like I'm a right brain guy, man. Like people from back home, they probably remember me as this like kind of straight edge guy that was just like super focused, never got in trouble, like went to West Point, blah, 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 blah. And like the real thing is like, hey, man, I just wanted to be locked up in a music studio for 7 hours and like, write lyrics and, paint and write poetry and like go to an art school or go to a liberal arts school. And like, I could never share that. So I felt like, I don't know, man, I felt like I was living many different lives. And I lived like that for a very long time, man. Like,
yeah, man. That's deep, man. I feel I could definitely relate to that, because I believe that's, how could I put it? Yeah, like I was telling you earlier, like, my whole 20s, like I was just kind of trying to live up to expectations of my parents. But there were certain highlights in my childhood where I noticed I was showing interest in things that were basically on the opposite end of what was being expected of me.
Right.
Such as video and photography and this interest in like cartoons and everything. Like, there was something in me where I felt more of a joy and passion on like creating, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But everyone's not perfect, right? So, I was looking back and I'm like, I feel like that wasn't being paid attention to enough, to where, oh, wow, this young kid, he has something. He really likes making, making videos and stuff like this. Like, okay, let me get him a camera or something,
Yeah.
So
I feel like it was a different generation too. Like, and not to make excuses for it, but like I know exactly what you're saying, man. I feel like our parents' generation, like they thought they were doing the best that they could, and like maybe they took a certain, like tactic or approach to it, and not that you don't necessarily, you may not agree with it, but like I try to empathize with it, but then every time I really sit back and think about like what you went through and like some of the stuff I get heated, man. I kind of get frustrated because I feel guilty for like, saying certain things about the way my parents raised me because they did provide a good childhood.
Yeah.
But it was like the little things, you know what I mean? Like
Very
as an
small
adult,
things. Yeah.
the very small things, what they say to you, how they encourage you, like not
Yeah.
being so harsh or like taking time to listen. And no, I get it, man.
Yeah.
Like even now thinking about it, I'm just like, man, I feel guilty for like saying that, but at the same time, like what's got to be said has to be said,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people need to learn from it.
Yeah. That's
So
how. So I mean, so would you get married again?
yeah, I would. Yeah,
Okay.
I would
And
like, and I think it would just be different. I think when I was married, I'm gonna be honest, like I think it was much more about what it represented, like not internally or holistically. I think it was much more about, checking off the box in mid 20s and then it's on the roadmap to get in the house with the kids and yada yada yada. And I just think the intention, like I would never throw somebody under the bus or like what we had and say like there was nothing there. But I feel like a lot of it was like what people were saying in our ear. So it was kind of like, oh, we got to put on a big wedding and then we got to like do this and do that. And so I believe in what it represents if the intentions are right.
right.
Um, but I'll tell you what, man, it's like it's not even I believe in it, but I wouldn't be in a rush to do it. Like I'm gonna keep it, I'm gonna keep it
Yeah.
100. I'm gonna keep it 100 right now, man. I'm in
Yeah.
a great relationship right now,
Right.
and I don't think I would be in the headspace that I am right now if I hadn't gone through everything. So I appreciate the relationship I'm in now
Most definitely.
because of what I went through.
Yeah, I feel that.
And I was single for a very long time, man. In LA, there's a lot of opportunity, a lot
Yeah.
of fun
Yeah.
you can have,
Yeah.
and I just never felt, I had fun, I go out and, do my thing, but like I never gave myself permission I never like could settle down, man. Like it was like I just didn't feel right. And I was being real picky, man. And I think that's one of the benefits that came out of it. It's like self-respect, accountability, knowing like owning up to maybe what you did and like being a man about it. And then, but at the same time, being super confident in what you offer. And I think
Definitely.
a lot of time men get on, like they don't give themselves, and I'm not trying to upset anybody, but like I don't think men give themselves enough permission and like credit for what they do offer in a relationship. And it's about being confident. It's not about being arrogant and cocky. Like there's things that men offer to relationships and it's a balance. It's a partnership. That's why it's called a partnership.
Right.
And I think men need to play up what they do well and what they offer and like really, really believe in it. And they need to find somebody or find a situation where that person's really gonna value it and not have any leverage over the other person.
Right. I can feel
So really, really embrace it, and when you get two people that understand, like, and the big thing is not changing people. You hear the statement all the time, is like, if you think you're going to change somebody, like their DNA and what they're passionate about, what their hobbies are, like, it is doomed to fail. I mean, that's just my take on it. Like, it's not your job to change somebody. It's
right.
to better somebody.
Yeah, I can dig that, man. How long were you like after the marriage? Like how long did you remain single?
Wow. Man,
Quite
I
some
would have
time, I'm
been,
assuming.
yeah, man, like 2012. Man, I didn't even do the next like dating, I would say, where like I was in quote unquote a relationship
Yeah.
until 2017. So
Okay.
almost 5 years.
Now that leads me to my next question. How important do you feel? Because there's sometimes there's like this attachment thing that people have where one will get out of a long-term crazy relationship or whatever and then hop back onto the next one. Now we won't speak directly. Let's speak about men in particular since we're two guys here.
Right.
How important do you feel it is for that amount of solitude to be, to occur in one's life. Because again, like I said, a lot of people, they get into one marriage or a relationship, long-term relationship, and then hop into another one. Right. How important was it for you to take that 5-year break from just like relationships?
I would say it was a necessity. I think what it was is, I think if I would have ran from, or like in general, like, my story, but like, I think it can apply to anybody. I think if you jump from one to the other, I don't think you're really taking time to break down like really what happened. And I feel like it's kind of like a Band-Aid, and, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite. There's been times in my life where like, I've ran, or I've like jumped from like venture to venture, or like, place to place. And cause I think there might be more opportunity or whatever. But when it comes to that, like, I don't think you give yourself to like a chance to breathe and think, because a big thing for me is accountability. And I think the hardest thing for like most people to do, and I know a lot of men, is like owning up to what your shortcomings were. Right. So I flipped the script, man. Like, I never, to this day, and you can ask anybody, like, I've never said an ill word on my ex.
Right.
Like, and so for me, it was like, I got to deal with this behind closed doors and in silence. So, whether I go in nature, I get into the arts, if I write, whatever, travel, whatever it might be. And it gives me a chance to really think about like accountability. Like, you got to really, really step back and look in the mirror and say, hey, it didn't work out, but what, let's break it down. Like, what did I do, or what could I have done better? Or what do I want to give to the next person that like they deserve?
See, that's the important thing right there, is getting to a point where you can't point the finger at anybody for, whatever quote unquote downfall that you may have had. I feel like once when a man can really look in the mirror and ask those questions, like, okay, what could I have done better? Like, what did I do wrong? And you become like you begin to take ownership in your own life. And that makes one like just extremely powerful. You know what I'm saying? You make yourself more powerful by doing so.
Yeah, man. Like, cause you have nothing out. You start shedding like the layers, man. Like, you're showing people who, like, you're showing yourself, but you're also showing other people like, this is the real me. And like, I'm man enough to like acknowledge what I wasn't perfect at. And then you start to realize like, wait, nobody's perfect anyway. So why don't I just like be who I am and own up to what I did, because nobody's perfect. It's just a matter of like, are you willing to get better? Are you willing to become more real?
Right.
And then they have that saying, like, your vibe attracts your tribe. And I feel like when you're the realist, then the person that's going to walk into your life, whether it's a significant other, a business partner, a friend, whatever it might be, it's because they sense something. You didn't even have to say anything. I can't tell you how many people walk in my life just because of the way I carry myself now.
Right.
Not because of what I'm, obviously stuff on social media and what you say, but like just out and about, like people, I don't know, man. I just feel like people, it's like a honey trap. Like, people come into your world and there's just that connection that you don't need words for.
Right.
and they nurture that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. What when it came to like, how difficult was it for you not to speak anything bad about your ex-wife going through that moment? Because I still have nothing. Look, and for the record, I still have nothing bad at all to say about my ex-wife, because like, we had a conversation not too long ago. We are on good terms, man. As a matter of fact, I could speak to her as if she's my friend. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, and, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, man. I'm happy for you, man.
Yeah,
because I know everyone who's been through that situation. Like, I know the range of emotions and kind of the bearing you gotta have.
Throughout the whole thing, when it was all said and done, I said I'm gonna treat it as if it never happened on social media or whatever. So therefore, I didn't speak on anything. And even then, I keep the talking. I don't talk about it a lot. In public, because, only if it's necessary. Say like right now we're talking about it. But for the most part, what I did, I took all that energy if I did have that urge to want to say anything bad or think a negative thought, I took all that and just put it into the Everyday Strangers project. You know what I'm saying? I was like, okay, all right, I'm not with all this negative energy. Let me go book a flight. And then, I end up in LA somewhere, New York or Chicago, and just start meeting people. And if I had like a negative thought, I would like walk up to people and ask them questions that was related to that thought. And I would ask them, so what do you think about this? And it was it's so therapeutic doing things like that.
Man.
Take that energy and channel it.
Because you're getting real. I mean, you're getting unbiased. Like you didn't handpick these people. You didn't coach them. Like you're documenting what people who don't even have connections to each other might think on a topic.
Right.
And then you add it to like your palette, like, oh man, like I never thought of it this way, or I can resonate with it.
Right.
That's super important, man. And just to say, man, I don't mean to like cut you off, whatever. I want to say that I've been watching you for a while, man. Like, we talked about this, but I kind of a lot of times, I see everything. I'm one of those guys that like observes like the whole landscape, and I watch people's journey, and I've been supporting you for a while, man. And like it's just I think the reason why I resonate with it is just because it's real, man. Like, and I know this is like a plug, whatever, but I mean, it's real. I'm just going to say what's on my mind. And I think when you capture real things and you pursue passions, man, and the reason why I'm saying this is because even without knowing what you went through, I could see your artistic evolution from when you first got, I still remember the first post you did, or like the story where you got a certain camera from a person that was very important in your life, and he passed it on to you.
Oh,
and you probably know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Wow, bro.
So I've been on it for a while, man, and so I can see the growth. And for me, it was like writing and like some other artistic ventures I've been doing behind the scenes, and things that I'm still doing behind the scenes. I always tell people, it's for every one thing you see me doing or hear about, I got 10 other things working simultaneously in the background.
Yeah.
And so but it's a new like perspective now. Like now that I know I want to do something creative and make money, it's kind of like, okay, I got to make this work. And now I know what the rest of my life looks like. So I'm very clear about, how I want to use the rest of the time on earth and what I want to do with my life. And, and I think I see a lot of that in you, man. So I'm just really happy for you, man. Because you're trying to make an impact and just live your life out and do what you love doing. And I think one can recognize that, what they say, like real ones, recognize. And man, I know that's a little off topic, but I just wanted to plug that in there.
I appreciate that, bro. That meant a lot, man. I mean, that was actually that post that you're talking about. That was actually before that song that we had did together. So
yeah, okay, yeah,
so that's way back. Yeah,
I was in Jacksonville when we sent the vocals back and forth, man.
Right, that was MySpace.
So we got a lot of people in common, man.
Yeah. Shout out to Tom from MySpace.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's crazy, man. Yeah, it's definitely been a minute, bro. From what I'm hearing, man, it just seems to me that in a sense, for certain people, maybe everyone, I mean, let's just say everyone, it just seems like things like marriage and divorce and breakups and just the whole concept of failing in general is a necessity in life in order for one to truly grow and become who they are truly meant to be. Because us speaking about divorce right now, like I'm enjoying this conversation. I feel great. I don't feel sad about anything, and I'm listening to you, and you just sound like you're just constantly growing. Like I'm feeling your energy, and it just makes me feel like these things are very necessary. And what I'm trying to, and maybe we know the answer, right? But like, how did this become like a negative thing? Like, oh, he's getting divorced, or she's divorced, or he's not married yet, or this and that. Like, how did we get to this point of where like these things are looked at as bad? You know what I'm saying?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a straightforward answer, and I think there's more like a philosophical answer. And I think is like societal stuff. And I mean, we can go on many different tangents with that. And I think it boils down to like institutions and like not to get whatever, like whether it's like religious, political,
Right.
I think if you look at something for what it is tangibly, like, it's a piece of paper, it represents this, and, what comes with that. Okay, supposedly getting a piece of paper that says you're married equates to you being more stable,
Right.
or being more wholesome, or you fall in line with a certain religion or part of society. And so I think it's like I think it's about being intentional, and I think it's about like the truth behind it. And like one of the things I can't stand, I mean, that's just me, is like, I'm not a very religious person. I consider myself a spiritual person, but like one of the reasons why I couldn't resonate with a lot of things, whether it's like religion or certain institutions in our society, is because of the hypocrisy with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. No, I feel
And
that.
I can't respect that, and that's just me. I mean, I'm not trying to like downplay anything, but like that's just who I am as a human. Like, I don't know if it's the guy that's been through a lot in his life, or the Capricorn in me, or whatever it is, but like I keep it
Yeah.
I keep it real, man. Like I love deeply. I'm a passionate person, but like I also, say it like it is, and if I see something that's hypocritical on any level, whether it's like from someone we're supposed to respect or what a thing represents, and it doesn't add up, or it's not real, or it's a lie, or it's misrepresented, like I got a problem with that. So
Yeah.
for me, it's about reframing. So if it's about, oh, it's going to make your parents, let's say it makes your parents, or allows them to like brag to their friends that, oh, my so and so got married by 24, 25, they're going to have this great life, but they don't really take the time to like read between the lines and ask if everything's okay, and like have empathy, and like, I don't know, man. I think it's expectations. I think it's systematic expectations, facade. And I think it needs to be more of a personal thing, man. So like if a person is, if it didn't work out, it's about taking it as a learning experience. So I think it's about reframing it. I think it's like, what, I grew from it. It's part of my fabric. And I'm about to take the world on. Like I'm such in a good headspace because I've accepted it.
Yeah.
And I think you got to shed the ego. You got to shed certain expectations. And at the end of the day, you just got to answer to yourself, man. Like it's no longer about making your parents happy and your siblings and your family, friends. Like that's a very personal journey. And so like you got to get to the point where it's like, man, I don't care what they think.
Yeah.
And once you let that go and you breathe, like it's like letting this like elephant off your back. And that's how I felt when I became more accountable and I owned up to my stuff, and then like didn't care what people thought.
Mm-hmm.
That then translated to everything in my life. So, in a weird way, like going through what I went through in 2012 has made me the man that I am today. And not just with relationships. I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about work, passion, how I want my life to be like, what's really important in life.
Yeah.
And it's even changed my relationship with my parents. Like, again, I told you I'm going to keep it real. Like, I don't know if they're going to hear this or not, but ever since that day and since then, you kind of have to evolve your relationship with your loved ones. And I speak to my parents in a different way. I speak to some of my best friends in a different way. And part of that is because they haven't gone through what I've gone through.
Right.
So let's keep it real. Like, okay, you're still married, or you have kids now, or you got a different job. Like, I've been all over the world, and I've been through many more things than the divorce. Like, and you and I touched on some things. Like, I've been through some serious stuff, like, the eating disorder and like all this other stuff, man. Like, so I just been like chipped away, and I keep growing and growing. I like regenerate, but I regenerate with a different perspective and philosophy. And I don't regret any of it, man. Like, it was some hard stuff, went through some hard things, but I'm in the best state of mind I've ever been in my life.
Right, right. Yeah, it's great, man. Yeah, and I forgot about that, bro. You was on the weren't you on the TD Jake show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
TD Jake show, and talking about body image disorders, eating disorders, and that actually happened at West Point. So like, there's some stuff that happened to me, even before the divorce. So like, like I tell people, I'm 34 years old, but I feel like an old soul, man. Like I feel like I've lived like 10 lives in 34 years.
Yeah.
And that's where all the, I got gray hair now. I got like the salt and pepper thing going on. And
You kind of like the new Jim Carrey now, yo.
yeah, exactly, man. Like,
Hey, that's a
he's
dope
on a
look though,
different
man.
level too, man.
Yeah. Hey, I'm trying to get what Jim Carrey is at, man. That's a dope dude right there, bro.
Get some coffee with that guy in the room. Yeah.
For real.
Oh man, definitely, man. But yeah, I was on the show, and that was part of my personal growth, and then everything I went through, and like, and just so everybody knows, and like everyone listening, part of that accountability, just to kind of backtrack, one thing I had to own up to is when I wrote my book in 2016, that was the first time I'm talking to anybody, like anybody I knew, anybody in the world knew that I had an eating disorder. I had gone through one, because when I was at West Point, they lock all the records up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in some vault somewhere, and they can't disclose it without my permission. So that started in 2003, and I didn't write that book till 2016. So I lived with that secret and that condition for 13 years.
Wow.
And part of it, was embarrassment, and like I didn't know how society was going to feel about it, and you don't know how to deal with it. And but words are my therapy. But part of that journey was, obviously I was in a relationship
Mm-hmm.
during that period, and I didn't even tell my ex-wife. You know what I mean? So like, I didn't tell my parents, I didn't tell my ex, even my best friend, like nobody.
Yeah.
And I kept it internalized. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't talk to therapists. Like my therapy was writing, and it was like putting it in a folder, and then eventually just grew to the point where I was like, man, I got to break my silence, and I got to write this, and like this is the way I got to write it. But part of that was like, there were things that I didn't tell her, and I learned from that, and I learned that when she found out afterwards through the publication of the book, in a way I had to let her down because I didn't trust her enough to tell her.
Mm.
Same look I saw in my mother's eyes, and she has the, mom's sixth sense. And so when you become accountable to those little things, you can't change the fact that you did it or you didn't say it, but you can move forward with being, as honest as possible for the next person or for the next people that walk in your life. And I'm at a point now where I'm almost like a faucet, no filter. Like,
yeah, bro, that's important, man.
Just freedom of speech, and say what's on my mind, and just trusting things are gonna fall where they fall, man. And man, that's where I'm at, man.
that's dope though, man. Because my previous interview is with a guy named Shamal Peets, and he just finishing his book entitled Whole Again. And it's some deep things that he's speaking about. I mean, these are some like deep rooted things that normally, most guys wouldn't speak about. We're talking about, from verbal abuse to molestation, suicide and everything. Like, I mean, he let it all out. But the end result of him actually putting that book out actually made him like lighter, meaning less weight on him. And on top of that, he was able to really become the man that he was really destined to be. So, I mean, he was liberated after presenting his story. And what I'm learning from your story and from his and from, other people that are actually, developing the courage to put their story out to the public is that, I mean, if anyone feels that their story is so bad that, that they feel shame for it, I almost feel like that they're really, I think that's almost worse. And I hate to say this is a bold statement. I hate to say this is almost like worse than suicide. If someone holds that story back for years, I mean, and never shares it.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I mean, I think everybody has their own timeline. So I would never say like, you need to do it in like 2 years. Like, I feel like everyone has a different way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
But I think, it becomes toxic, man. If you don't talk about it, it'll eat you alive, and then you get in your head, and then it starts affecting other parts of your life. And so that's why I kind of step back and say, like, I wonder, by not talking about it earlier or feeling shame or embarrassment, like, what if? And I try not to live my life like that. And, hindsight's 20/20, but But keeping it real, like if I would have dealt with it in a different way, like earlier, like how could have maybe other things played out? But I also feel like the amount of impact you can have for other people.
Yeah.
And I think that was a changing point for me. And the whole reason I wrote my book and decided to like come out and say it, I was actually at a coffee shop in West LA, Santa Monica, called Literati Cafe. It's where all the writers go, all the creatives near UCLA. And I saw this young girl. She was probably like 18, 19. I think she was a freshman at UCLA, and her mom was visiting, and they were in the booth behind me. And this girl was like trying to tell her mom that she thinks that she might have an issue.
Right.
But she was like breaking down. She was crying. She didn't know how to communicate it. And I got super emotional, man, because I was like, man, this girl's screaming out for help. Like, I know what I'm hearing because I went through it.
Yeah.
But from a male perspective. And I left there, and immediately I reached out to an organization that had a chapter in LA called Project Heal. And they deal with people with eating disorders and body image disorders. And I went to one of their meetups at Tom's flagship on Abbot Kinney in Venice.
Right.
And I stood in the back. I blended in like I wasn't really there for the meeting. Yeah, I kind of creeped in there, had a cup of coffee. I brought a couple books, and I was acting like I was working, but I was like sitting close enough to hear what they were saying. And I went one meeting, and I vanished, like kind of like a ninja in the night. I kind of like backed out and didn't say anything. I went back for the next one and started talking about it, and realized that that's something that needs to be talked about. And I felt comfortable to talk about it with that close group. And then obviously they protect the information, so they didn't tell anybody. So I was still able to write the book, and that was kind of my way of talking about it. But yeah, man, I think everyone has their timeline. They deal with it different ways, but it's the most liberating feeling in the world because there's no more. You're breaking down the facade. You're taking the curtains away, and you're exposing yourself, in a very vulnerable way.
Yeah.
And when you realize that people aren't going to hurt you when you're vulnerable, you start to let in more of like the compassion and empathy. And then you use that as a weapon, as a healing tool where, man, there's people that really do care about me, that would have cared about me, but I can use my story to bring awareness to a certain condition. Right. And shed light on a segment of population that either people judge or have a bias or might have a misconception about. And it's about reframing. It's about rewriting the narrative and putting a face to maybe a thing that you may not know that much about.
Yeah.
So I use it more as like a constructive tool, also as a liberating tool. And it kind of gave me more. It also gave me purpose, man. Like I still support that, the awareness, and like I'll always be involved in that. Right. But yeah, man, I think that's big ups to him, man. I think that's super important, and I think a lot of things you talk about on here, it's a breath of fresh air, man. I'm glad you're touching on these issues because I don't know how people digest the info, different mediums and reading and podcasts and music, but it's about time we start talking about more real stuff than this that labels are pushing out and publishers and all that. I mean, it's time to get to the real stuff because this is really happening. People don't realize this is happening in rooms, across the country where people don't have a voice, where people can't talk up, they can't speak.
Exactly, man.
It's about to put a microscope on it. So.
Yeah, definitely, man. Man, this is great, man. So I got two more questions for you, bro.
Okay. All right.
Well, the first one is, we're two men here speaking about, marriage and our past and divorce and, life struggles. But take like kids younger than us who are in some kind of search for purpose. Like if one were to ask you like, yo, man, how does one find their purpose in life? What advice do you give?
As hard as it is, you have to realize that this is your life and that this time on earth is yours and yours alone. Right. Like obviously you want to, impact other people and involve other people, but man, use that time, listen to that gut, listen to the inner voice. And you got, as hard as it is, you got to shed, impressing your parents, impressing your friends, impressing your siblings, and living up to other people's expectations of what your life should look like. Because nothing is realer than that voice that keeps creeping in your head that says, nah, you're supposed to go left, you're supposed to go left, and everyone's screaming right.
Yeah.
And and the only way to do it is through trial and error. You're gonna hit rock bottom. I've hit rock bottom. I'm not afraid to say it. Like, we're talking real. Like, I've had ups and downs, and I've hit walls at 80 miles an hour. And you learn ways not to hit a wall at 80 miles an hour. You learn how to like go around the wall. And
Yeah, exactly.
no, so I would say just stay true to yourself. I know a lot of people say it in different ways, but
Yeah.
you got to shed the ego and listen to your own voice. Trust yourself over everyone else.
Right. I feel
Always.
that. I feel that, man. But last question is question I ask all my guests at the end.
Yep.
If you had one more year left on this planet, how do you see your life being, or would you change anything? How do you see your life?
Whew. Yeah, man. Every time, 'cause I knew you were gonna ask this question. And I think I get emotional about it because I think I've worked a lot on myself
Yeah.
over the past, many, many, many years. So I feel like I'm on the right track, and like I'm growing into my own skin. I think I would double down, quadruple down on the manifestation of vulnerability and keeping it real, and trying to influence as many people to try to change their life, because they're going to have the time and I'm not.
Right.
So I think it would be just whatever I can do to influence the most people. But I would definitely use some of that time to, like, with my family, one-on-one at first. So it sounds kind of crazy, but like I would book trips like one-on-one with my father, and I would just go somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, and I would just ask him to like take some quiet moments. And like they do this in yoga and meditation, and I would say, like, let's just like look in each other's eyes, be present. And I'm talking for like a long time. Like, let's look in each other's eyes and like watch each other for like 5, 10, 15 minutes straight.
Wow.
And I guarantee, because I know I've already experienced, like everything that's bottled up is going to come out. And I want the most raw emotions to come out from every relationship I have, because I feel like I need to repair certain relationships in a certain way. But at the same time, I want them to see the realest version of who I am at that moment with that time left. Because I want them to kind of look at me and nod and say, I see you. So for me, I would be seeking that word from each person I love. I get you. I see you. I love you. It's okay to go. And once I have that like peace of mind, then I'm ready to go, because I've accepted, without sounding morbid, I've already accepted the concept of mortality, man. Because I've been through so much that like death doesn't scare me, man.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. Like, so it's kind of like I got a lot to live for, but if that were to come, I would say, you know what? Like it's time to
Yeah.
I'm going out with a bang, you know?
Wow, that's one of the most profound things I've heard. That response was crazy, bro. And I'm like, I've never heard that before. And I'm actually picturing myself being able to do that with my father. And man, that's deep though. I'm trying to imagine that. And I'm also imagining how almost difficult that would kind of be, but how it would be well worth it at the end,
Yeah, it'll be its own release, man. Like,
Yeah,
no
man.
words, just look. Like being able to, look the person that brought you into the world in their eye, and then they look at their kid without saying any words. And that's the quickest way to undress somebody's soul, man.
Yeah.
Is that
Definitely.
practice. So,
That's
hey,
deep.
before we go, man, I got to give a shout out, because I know certain people are going to listen to this.
Get it.
Yeah, I got to shout out to the beautiful woman in my life right now. Because I know we were talking about my past, but
Right.
I just wanted to shout her out and let her know that she's an incredible person, and I wouldn't be who I am without what I went through. But like, she knows that I bring stuff, and I've shared things with her, and I'm excited about the future, man. So a plug for her, but also like, she needs to know that I'm bringing everything from my past in the most constructive, positive way.
Definitely.
And so I'm excited about my future. So.
For sure. Man, Sam, it's been good. So, okay, the book is still out, correct?
Yeah. So the first book I wrote, the title of it is Faim, which is FAIM. So that's French for hunger.
Okay.
And you can find it on Amazon. It's still up there. All the proceeds go to the nonprofit. I don't keep any of the money.
Okay.
I'm releasing my second book actually January of next year, 2020.
Nice.
Which is my second collection of poetry. And I'm actually working on my first novel, man, which I'm gonna adapt into a screenplay. Which has been an artistic challenge, and like I've never been more excited, man. I got so many ideas, and so I'm working on a bunch of stuff, man, behind the scenes, and I got some entrepreneurial things that I want to get in the works. So I've started laying the groundwork for some, kind of incubator type thing where there's real estate involved and like e-commerce, and you and I are going to connect on that too. But the entrepreneur hustler in me is always moving, man. So I got things in the works on that.
For sure, we definitely going to do another interview on the new book that comes out, definitely the novel, and on top of that, man, I feel like we're gonna end up collabing on something in the future because as we speak, man, I'm in the process of writing my first book. Even though my first book was actually The Everyday Strangers Volume 1, but my first actual written book, because the other one was a photo and story book. Yeah. So yeah, man, that's.
No, I know. I have no doubt, man. I already got ideas and stuff, and you and I are definitely gonna connect offline, and
definitely.
I know I'm excited, man. I see positive things. I'm like a visionary guy. Like I see things out there. People call me a dreamer, and I already see things in the works. And when you manifest it and you envision it, it's just a matter of getting the logistics down, man. You just got to do the action. So we're gonna make that happen.
Most definitely, man. And I've been taking a break from social media, but where can the people find you at though?
Yeah, man, I'm no longer on Facebook. I got off Twitter a long time ago. Best decision I made getting off Facebook. Like I don't need that anymore. But
I feel you.
But I'm heavy on IG. So on Instagram, people can find me at A Poet and a Gentleman, all one word, A Poet and a Gentleman. And man, it's just a mix of like, my kind of the perspective of how I see the world, some writing, some of my work, other people's work, and more of a curated take on how I see the world. And but that's like the truest manifestation of who I am. So people that knew me from the past, if you want to know how my brain works and like how I see the world, and that's really who I am.
Yeah, man.
And
but
that's where you can connect with me.
Yeah, it's a dope IG filled with some dope stuff in there, bro. The photographs and then the poetry combined. I'm like, man, this is crazy.
I appreciate that, man.
All day, man. It's all love, man. Well, Sam, man, look, bro, I appreciate you sharing your story and your views and your thoughts, and I just want to congratulate you, man, on the things that the future has for you, bro.
No, I really appreciate that, man. I think people need to hear this stuff, and I'm honored that you had me on, man. And it's been too long, man. We can't let so much time go by.
Nah, definitely, man. Yeah, we definitely gonna connect more, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And shout out to all the rappers from 757 because we know Push one.
Yeah, all day. You heard that? Yeah, I heard that, Canada. No, let me stop. For sure,
right,
man. All right, Sam. Good talking to you, bro.
Hey, man. Take it easy, man.
You too. Peace.